Welcome to Mind Your Health podcast today. I'm so happy to have a special guest with me today. As you know, I'm Dr. Mirhom, assistant professor of psychiatry in Columbia University, and I have the one and only Brian Scalabrine talking to me today about the journey in the NBA and the pressure thereof. Brian, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, I know you've been communicating with me for a while, and you know what? I'm kind of weird when it comes to locking in time. People will say, "Hey, can I get some time with you sometime in the future?" I always say, "Well, you can get right now. You can get tomorrow at 10. This is what I have." And then like a week later, you can get tomorrow. I don't usually plan anything out like a week in advance.
Right. Yeah, because there's so much going on. So I mean, that's why I'm like so grateful that we get to hop on
Yeah.
today, man. It really means a lot. So, we were talking a little bit about kind of as I was mentioning to you, I've been involved a little bit with the MBPA, kind of with players and staff about the mental health and wellness kind of being more of a movement in the past year or two. And I was curious, kind of from your journey, right, being in the league, what's it like as you're kind of going into it and managing that like pressure of just kind of adjusting to playing overall? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's sports is a lot of ups and downs, and the better player you are at a younger age, I think you're better at handling the ups and downs of your performance, right? But I've never ever been a performance based person. I'm really
Mm,
not. Like I'm a possession based person. So I
mm,
kind of look like when I unfold something and people say, "Well, how did you play?" Right? That's so like a big broad spectrum.
mm,
So I need to really like for me, and don't get me wrong, like a game happens and let's say I'm down, right? I have to go in and I have to watch possessions and say, well, like what could I have done better on
mm,
this? And there's moments where you get an opportunity to play, and let's say I get three shots. There's a big difference between 0 for 3, 1 for 3, 2 for 3, or 3 for 3. And
right.
I take thousands of shots in a week, and it all comes down to three shots. So I
Wow.
sort of got away from feeling the ups and downs, and I will say, from the pressure goes away when you do the work, and
Mm,
you feel, and a lot of times it's you feel good about your body if you take the time to like to do the strength training, the conditioning, the stretching, and all that stuff, and your body feels good. Usually your mind feels pretty good. A lot of
mm,
times, like the grind of the NBA and the ups and downs of the league, a lot of times it's just being like exhausted,
mm, mm,
playing a lot of minutes, traveling, getting in at 3 o'clock in the morning, having shoot around. Like I had kids. So if I got back at 3 o'clock in the morning and my kids are up at 7, like, as like I'm sure there's a huge connection to just like being tired, being
right.
exhausted, lack of
Right.
sleep, and the way that people perceive like how their day is going. And I say, even now as a broadcaster or whatever, my days and the ups and downs of the times where I don't get as much sleep, even that affects my mental
Right.
health. So there's a I and I don't get and I understand that everybody has like their different versions of mental health, but a lot of times what I do is I like take a step back and look at,
Mm,
okay, am I tired? Did I do the work? If I need to like kind of break out of something, maybe I need to just go out and get some fresh air today. Maybe I need to do some different types of training. Like instead of
mm,
doing linear training, I need to do lateral, or maybe I need to walk backwards just to fire up different parts of
right.
my mind. And that in the past has really helped me zone in and sort of move forward in a way that I feel like has been, if it's something is not going right, I always feel like there's a physical component that I can adjust and make it better.
That sounds like such a well worked out system that you've sort of gotten to over the years, right? Like kind of evaluating yourself and your circumstances. I mean, it's really encouraging actually to hear you kind of approaching it that way. Do you feel like people that you've played with and kind of throughout the years, are some people having more difficulty sort of coping to that pressure and maybe not approaching it in as healthy of a way? Like have you seen players around you feel like, this is sort of overwhelming, this
Sure.
pressure?
Sure. So I think so. We're all a product of who we know, right? And
Mm,
so I work with a great body work guy, right?
mm,
And so like you're a little bit off, and sometimes like I don't think we as a society understand the mind body connection
yes,
anywhere close to where we need to, right?
totally. You're
So
so
my
right.
body work guy would say something along the lines of, "How's your training been?" And I'm like, "I'd
Mm,
say it's good." This is before I would do all the stuff that I just brought up, right?
mm,
It's been good. I've been working out. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. Like, how have you been? working side to side. I'm like, no, not really. What
Mm,
about backwards? No, not really. Well, there's certain parts of your brain that fire when that happens. So
right.
I'm not sitting here telling you that I came up with this example of
Right.
rocking backwards has
Right.
really helped me become, more mentally healthy. But you're around people. And one
Mm,
thing that I would say about, NBA players, and that's the only like, or maybe football players. I don't know a lot of football players, but
mm,
NBA players, like I am consistently putting people around me that challenge me in different ways. For
mm,
instance, like one of my best friends is one of the managing partners at the Boston Consulting Group, BCG,
mm,
really high level consulting
mm,
group. Another one of my best friends is a lawyer, high managing partner at Latham and Watkins. And they're not like, I like the guys, I do,
right.
but it's not just that. Like they bring a different perspective to me.
Mm,
Like my
mm,
problems in my world of MBA are completely different than their problems. Some
right.
are similar. So it's like, and I mentioned the guy, my bodywork guy, like when you're started getting around different types of people, I think they stimulate your brain in different ways.
Mm,
And I think you can grow. If you want to live in a small little bubble and push
mm,
everybody aside and not have a diverse group of friends, then I really think that all that stuff falls into, how people can maybe feel depressed at times and maybe I need to buy something because I feel sad. I
mm.
don't live like that. I bought one vehicle through my NBA career.
Wow.
That was it. It wasn't like I didn't have this need like,
Right.
man, I'm feeling, man, I missed 3 shots today. I need to do something. I'm going to buy a car,
Mm,
I just
mm,
don't, my life doesn't work like that. I wasn't really into clothes or anything like that. So my whole, my little life and my circles were I think they were very diverse. Let's use diverse,
mm.
from financially diverse, ethnically diverse. I mean, just all over the board. And I'm really engaged. I'm really interested in what people are and what people do, and I think that helped me, like from a mental health
Right.
standpoint, gives me perspective.
And do you think that perspective and that sort of diverse approach around you is part of the reason that you became such a fan favorite? I mean, when people think of you, that's sort of always been, almost like your title. People just love to talk to you, to hear you, because you being not defined by just kind of a stat line or a performance
Sure.
in a game, but it sounds like you're really way more than that. Do you think that's what contributed to fans just kind of gravitating towards you?
You know what it is. I mean, you're at Columbia, so you can make a whole study on, and there could be like a race component to it. There could be like
Mm,
a
mm.
image component to it. Like I just look like a normal guy. Like you could have a whole study, a semester study on
Right.
why in particular did I become like a fan favorite or like the guy. Like it is kind of wild, Like I played 11 years. I do think a lot of the teams think about the Nets off the jump, 2 NBA finals. Then I go to the
Mm,
Celtics. We go to 2 more with the Bulls.
mm,
Our teams had the best record in the NBA 2 years in a row. So maybe it's like there's a connection between,
mm.
like Scalabrine's on teams that are always good, playing in the
Right.
finals, playing in the
Right.
playoffs. I don't know, but it is an interesting study. But I don't know if I could have took it a couple ways. And don't get me wrong, I didn't always embrace like the
Mm,
chance and all that stuff, and for
right.
different reasons, right? One, I didn't want to be known as that guy personally. Two, I didn't want, to take away from the people who built an
Right.
18-point lead. Like the attention should be put on them, not on me,
Right.
right? Like, but I'll tell you, when I went to Chicago and I fully dove in, fully embraced every ounce of it, I was a much happier person. I mean,
Oh.
off the charts happy. And I would like, we'd get up by 14 and it'd be 6 minutes to go. And Thibodeau would be walking the sidelines. He's all gruffy, like that. I look and be like, they ready for it. They're ready for it. You got to give them what they want, Tibbs. And then like there'll be a timeout under 6. And I'll look at the guys like, come on, man, I got to get some run today. I'm trying to be out there. Push this lead from 14 to 20,
Right, right.
So I fully went all in. And I have to admit, like maybe I wouldn't have been able to do that in year
Mm,
4 or 5,
mm,
but
mm,
when I was in year 10 and 11 and I fully embraced it, I thought it was, like I said, it was the happiest I've ever been. And in hindsight, it is more of my personality because, like
right.
I said, I'm not a performance based guy, but I do like enjoy playing. It's like one of my loves of life. I love being out there playing, getting guys involved, getting shots. Like I just love doing that. So I wish I would have embraced it more at a younger age.
But it sounds like it was somewhat of a process, right? And it's probably both
For
for
sure.
you as well as for other players, the process of kind of being comfortable in your own skin, whatever that can mean or whatever role that entails. It takes time, but I mean, you talk about Tibbs now. I'm a Knicks fan, so kind of seeing him with the Knicks and seeing the fans kind of asking for Obi to come in, right? Like at a particular time of the game, and people have mixed feelings about that too. But it's really awesome that you're able to get to the point where you fully sort of embrace it and just kind of dive right in when you were in Chicago.
Yeah. And I think there was this big change when I had my first kid when in 2007. And then, then the following year it's Garnett and Ray Allen, they come. And so
Mm.
like once like that happened, it was like a steady state of just like really understanding how like so we were good in New Jersey and then we dipped down in 2 years in the Celtics and then Garnett and Ray Allen show up and then I had my daughter and I mean my wife's
Mm.
pregnant with the other one, so it was like a combination of a lot of things where I got like being comfortable of who I am and looking at myself more as a role model, like father versus like
Mm.
just another kid out there. So
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff all happened at the same time. And, like where my game didn't necessarily go to a direction which I wanted to, but I still put the work in, but I was just like kind of like okay with, what is going on and the restriction and like just watching Kevin Garnett and realizing like, dude, I am just lucky to even be in the same room with a player
Mm.
like this. And I thought the same. Looking back, I should have thought the same thing with Jason Kidd. Like Jason Kidd was one of my
Mm.
best friends on the team, but
Wow.
I didn't look at it like that because I was just young and dumb.
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
being around unreal people is like really what it's about. And I talked to you about my buddy at BCG or Latham and
Right.
Watkins. Like I
Right.
became really close to them, and I just started to like gravitate towards like unique individuals that
Mm.
and just to find out like their life, to understand my life a little bit more.
Yeah, and it sounds like you really were intentional about sort of expanding both your network as well as balancing like your professional life and your personal life. And there's a story that I wanted to get your take on recently. There was this one scene where Michael Beasley showed up to a game and he had like his shorts backwards or whatever, and he became like a meme and people were laughing at him. And he was really recently saying how, on a day like that, he had just lost his cousin, and a week before he lost his mom. Do you feel like the league sort of helps you process or balance? Because it sounds like you did a lot of this work on your own. Like you were intentional about expanding your network. You were,
Sure.
intentional about making things diverse. Do you think the league sort of supports you guys in terms of, because you come into the league pretty young, like you're a young man and kind of developing. Do you think there's good support to help you kind of balance your professional and personal life? Or do you think the emphasis is just like form, you got to make buckets, you got to have a good stat line, and that's who you are?
All right. So this is only my perspective, and I'm just going to be honest, right? I think the league, and I don't know how you look at this, and maybe, and this is, I'm not a professional when it comes to mental health or everything like that, right? But like maybe Michael Beasley living my life would not be healthy for him, and
Mm.
maybe me living Michael Beasley's life would not be healthy for me, right? And I know
Right.
that, and I know like, and I'm only having this conversation based off of my experience with meeting different
Right.
people and me being engaging in people who are probably a lot better than me and smarter than me, and like
Mm.
watching Kevin Garnett and how he handles himself, and like I'm not living my life exactly like Kevin Garnett, but I'm trying to like, what makes him such a special person? What
Mm.
made Jason Kidd like that? Ray Allen, he ran 5 miles on an off day, 2.5 miles on a game day. Why can't I go through my life and pick things that I like, right?
Uh,
And things that, and like, I'm never in a million years when Kevin Garnett walked into the locker room was I ever jealous of his cars or his
mm.
money or any. It's that is an exceptional human being.
Mm.
I am trying to get 1% of him being exceptional. So I think a lot of this, like people out there are trying to get stuff that's maybe is unattainable. And I saw this
Mm.
graph one day. It was really amazing. It started low, and these are like people who really struggle in life, mental
Mm.
health, everything like that. Can't get it together, and we all know them. You know them, I know them.
Right.
Everybody has
Right.
like the people, no
Sure.
matter what their life is. Like it's like they just can't get their life right. And then there's this huge bump, and then it comes back down, right? And then on the other side, it's Tom Brady, Michael Jordan,
Right.
like LeBron James, right? But it's amazing how many people in like this area
Mm.
want to be guys like out there. But
Right.
like
Right.
we have to understand like this part over here, this low level of guys that just can never figure it out. And this over here, the people that like whatever reason they're next level and how they get there and how they sustain it,
Mm.
it's a whole nother little conversation.
Right.
But we mostly fall in here, yet I always feel like everybody is trying to be here,
Mm.
right? Like,
Mm.
what's wrong? And now, how do you get to, and let's say you can be here or you can be, closer to that. Well, how
Mm.
you get there is by like opening up your mind and saying, like,
Mm.
there's ways to take things. Like, I can't watch, read, study Tom
Mm.
Brady and take 5 things from his life and try to incorporate it into mine. He eats avocado ice cream. Maybe I should too. Maybe I should not eat as bad as I do because of Tom Brady. He works with bands. Guess what? Like my workouts incorporate bands too. Like
Mm.
there are ways to do that. And I think
Mm.
a lot of the people who live in this big giant, like where most of the masses live, are sometimes I'm upset with being there. And I just
Mm.
don't feel like you could be upset that I'm not mad that I'm not LeBron, like Kevin
Right.
Durant,
Right.
Kevin Garnett, any of those guys. Like those guys are
Mm.
exceptional human beings for certain reasons. But when I coached the Golden State Warriors and I watched Steph Curry work, I was like, I couldn't believe how hard he worked. And I
Mm.
said, there's a reason why, and this is before he became MVP, and no one talked about
Mm.
Steph
Mm.
Curry like this. There's a
Mm.
reason why he's going to be special because
Mm.
he could just work longer and harder than everybody. He could play 40 minutes, the next day go to practice, and then that night come back and do an hour workout where he's doing full court shots. Like he's
Wow.
just an exceptional human being. So, like, can I take that from him and try to incorporate that into my life? Yeah. Can I be him? No chance. And I'm
Right.
okay with that.
I mean, there's a level of sort of humility and self-awareness, I think that's so refreshing to hear from you for
Yeah. It's
that
not,
because
but it's not the message society brings out.
not at
And they
all.
should do a much better job. Our society does not do a good enough job with that. Like, I have 3 kids. One of my daughters thinks that she's going to grow up and be a Kardashian. So she's trying to
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
get her social media thing going. So she posts one thing every week and think that that's going to be enough. Like even the Kardashians or anybody that has like a huge social media following, they work their ass off to get to
Right.
that point. They're
Right.
not just like, I mean, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, everybody that's doing these things are working their tail
Mm.
off to get there.
And it sounds like, I mean, as you've been in different roles too in the league from both playing, coaching, broadcasting, it sounds like you appreciate the amount of work in different ways. Like you see all these different angles of it. And we as the fans or the even somebody who's involved in the league on some level, you don't really grasp how hard this is. Whatever position you're in, whether you're the star or somebody that's a role player, it sounds like it's just an incredible amount of work that we don't really understand.
Or self-awareness, or
Mm.
also, like I don't know, in your world, do you have people that like I have friends that work their ass off and they work on the wrong stuff? Like in
Right.
your world, do you have people that just like, man, this guy just grinds, but like it's not applicable, and
Right.
whatever
Right.
reason, bad instructor. Like my daughter's in high school basketball right now, right?
Mm.
Like I'm not, and this is Massachusetts, and the basketball is not as great as what I grew up with in Seattle. Like Seattle has like a bazillion pros, right?
Mm.
Massachusetts is like just coming around, right?
Mm.
But the basketball is not what like I coach my daughter's AAU team. I have like 30 kids under me. I'm a
Oh,
director of like 3 or 4 teams, right? So
cool.
then so like the way we do things, it's like I'm constantly, first of all, think about my Rolodex. Well, we
Mm.
call it a phone now. Full Rolodex, old school, right? Think about my phone and the amount of phone calls I can make to people just to
Right.
pick their brain. Okay.
Yeah.
I could call any college basketball coach right now in America and ask him at least get 10 minutes of his time, right?
Yeah.
So like obviously my world is what my world is, right? So now my daughter is now playing in high school. Like, do you think that like she cannot, in her mind, she can't hold the coach to the same standards that she holds me to, right?
Mm.
It's just
Mm.
not fair.
Right.
It's really my experience and everything like that. So like she runs in these circles and like I kind of decipher, like basketball is a big one.
Mm.
People say things like, have you ever heard people say, follow your shot? You shouldn't follow
Right.
your shot. You should get your ass back on defense, right? So, but it's like people say these things and you're like, what are they doing it for? But my point of all that is like a lot of people spend time doing things that are not applicable and
Mm,
not applicable. By the way, the NBA 10 years ago is different than the NBA now. If you're still doing
right.
things that worked 10 years ago, you're outdated. That ain't going to work anymore. So you got
Mm,
to be cutting edge. You got to stay on top of it. You got to try different things. So it's just, I do think there's a lot of people out there that maybe they work really hard and they spin their wheels, but maybe they're just not working on things that matter today. I mean, just think of what have, like, I don't do Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, right? Like, what
right,
the
right,
hell is Bitcoin? And,
right, right,
5 years ago, what does it compare now? Like the way the stocks
right.
have grown, like, apps and games. And like, so like if you were doing things, hey, back in the day, we invested in General Electric and this is how you're going to do it, right? Like things change and you've got to
Right.
move with it. And if you're still working hard doing the things from the old days, and then you're going to be frustrated. And that goes back to mental health. Why am I working so hard and
Mm,
not getting anywhere? Well, you're working on things that don't matter anymore.
that's so true. And to your question of whether or not I see that, that's something I see every day. And it's sad almost, to see somebody trying so hard and really giving in 100% effort, but they're giving it into something that's not going to give them that same return. It's not producing the desired result. And to your point, part of it sometimes is like not having a good guide, a coach, a
For sure.
mentor, a friend,
100%.
right? Someone who says, hey, just do this, right? And that sometimes can be the difference maker.
And you cannot tell me, this is why we go, and I get there is a chemical component to mental health.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
totally understand that. But you can't tell me, like, there is nothing more frustrating than busting your ass morning to night and not getting the results that you want, right?
Yes,
And
totally.
so it's one of those things where it all goes back to, you just mentioned guidance. Like, I step outside your circles, and I
Mm,
tell kids all the time, you go up to people, you ask them what they do, and you ask them how they got there, and you'll find out
mm,
these stories. They're not anything like you thought they were going to be. Like, I think
uh-huh.
kids think, well, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to become a CEO of a company. And then, like, no, like you go here and you go there. Like, I had a
Right,
neighbor
right,
that was, he worked here, he worked there, and now he's a CEO of a company. He never even did any work in that company, but they liked
right.
him because he's a CEO in a medical field. And they just like, you just grow through it. So what is the best way to protect mental health and everything you do moving forward is like, open your mind a little bit, be
Mm,
diverse, meet people,
mm.
rich people, poor people, white people, black people, people from India, people from Russia, people from Africa. Like, the more people you get to meet, the better off you're going to be in life. The more people you pick their brain, you want to know about them, what they do, how they got here, how they excelled in life, the better you're going to be with life.
You're so right, because just that curiosity and then being willing to sort of course correct as you're learning more about people's journeys. Because I mean, that goes back to that humility that kind of just comes from you, right? You just feel like you're somebody who's always looking at your own life and seeing how to expand it. And I think whether you're talking to young players or young people, it sounds like people really benefit, and it's one of the reasons that people kind of always want to talk to you, is because they feel like you're grounded and sort of also looking at the bigger picture of things.
Yeah, I mean, I would listen. A lot of failure as a kid. A lot of times to self reflect on, am I doing the right things here? Like, what is helping me? But and I'm not. Don't get me wrong. The message always has to be the work, right? If you could
Mm,
choose
mm,
to spin your wheels and do nothing,
mm.
or I mean, I'm sorry, spin your wheels working and maybe not getting the direction you want to go or doing nothing at all, you would always choose to do the work. And
Mm,
but eventually I think that hard work and dedication, I think it does like give you more perspective on the people who you should be following, right? The
mm,
more time I'm around basketball people and grinding out in this business, the more times I can see through the bullshit and say,
mm,
like,
mm.
this guy's legit. This
Right.
guy's legit in life, and so when in doubt, do the work. When in doubt, do the work. And then, then it's, you start talking about great people around you, great leaders, great coaches, being, all the other stuff that we just mentioned throughout this podcast.
I love that, man. And maybe we can close with this. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but maybe if you're guiding a new player coming into the league right now, maybe somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's not exactly, the number one lottery pick, but, somebody who's got good prospects, and they're saying, hey, Scal, help me out. Like, how should I approach my career from a balanced both like a work ethic standpoint, professionally, but then also mentally for me to stay sort of healthy and fit, for my mind and my body. What are some of the things that you would sort of say these are some things to keep in mind as you're entering your career in the league?
First thing I would say is like write down what you eat for a month, right? Let's
Mm,
start like diving into that, right? Second thing I would say is like how dedicated are you to your training,
mm,
and that's not like I lift a lot of weights. No, it's like stability, core, all that kind of stuff, right? So let's like start dialing that in. The third thing from a basketball standpoint, break up basketball is like three ways, right? You're a low level guy, like I was a low level guy, right? You're a mid level guy, and then you're a superstar, right? But
mm,
don't get too far ahead of yourself. Like if you want to be a superstar, take about 10% of your time currently and work on being a superstar when you're a role player. But even if you are coming in as a top pick in the draft,
mm,
why don't you learn how to be a low level guy? Why don't you
mm,
learn, how hard you have to work and all that stuff? Then work on being a mid level guy. Then
mm,
my guess is that you'll end up being a really good star when you want to
mm,
get there. But if you're so focused on up here and trying to emulate up here, then you're going to miss some steps along the way. And the best is just go watch any. Now, listen, there are like LeBron James exception.
sure.
But by the way, if you really break down what LeBron does, LeBron James works hard
Mm,
defensively. He
mhm,
knows the game. He studies the game. He works like he's trying to stay in the league
right,
and play
right.
forever, right? But go watch some things about Michael Jordan. Michael
Mm,
Jordan going to 5-star basketball camp, trying to prove himself. Michael Jordan going to the Olympic trials, trying to prove himself. Michael Jordan getting cut from the team. Michael
mm,
Jordan going to University of North Carolina. Michael Jordan talking about, hey man, what I did at North Carolina has nothing to do with Chicago Bulls drafting me. I got
mm,
to set the
mm,
tone right now. So
right.
you're always resetting, right? But like, don't look at one day I want to be a Hall of Famer without thinking about the
Mm,
charts along the way. And I kind of feel like a lot of people who can't live up to expectations, like forget about like,
mm,
there's three levels of play. Like obviously there's more, but you're just guys in the league hanging on that can like role players, the 8th to 12th man. Then there's the fourth best player to the eighth best player. And then there's the top three players in the league. And
mm,
there's like subcategories of all that. Don't get too far ahead of yourself on that, and look at each group and how you could be good for your team. And then I really believe like things will play out. I use Kawhi Leonard as a great example.
mhm,
He
mhm,
averaged like 5 points a game his rookie year. And he
right.
came into the San Antonio Spurs as a defensive player and worked on becoming what he
Mm,
is. And he put attention to detail in defense. And so the Spurs held him accountable to that. So I
mm,
would think that that's a big part of like the overall thing. So you have the diet. What are you eating? How does your body respond to things? The exercise. Are you moving in all the planes of motion, forward, backward, side to side? Are you working on different things? Because your brain, obviously, parts of your brain work different ways when it comes to your movement. And then the last one is like, curbing your expectations, knowing where you want to go, but don't skip the steps along the way.
and that's so profound. And I feel like even though we're talking primarily about the league and about sports, this really applies to life. I feel like as I'm talking to patients, if they can keep these things in mind that you're saying, which are so sort of life changing, understanding the process, seeing where you are and where you want to be, putting in the work, not getting ahead of yourself. I mean, these are valuable nuggets, Scott. I mean, I'm just so happy that I had a chance to chat with
Can,
you today.
can you give me 2 minutes or less on your impact, like the impact of social media and that stuff that you're finding with people? Because, like my kids are entering into that and I'm like, I'm not a big social media guy. I do it, but it's not like I'm sitting there like hearing what everyone says about me. I don't really care.
Mm.
But I'm curious on like how have how has that changed and how do you guys look at it now? And I guess, kind of in the foreseeable future.
So I'll give you the summary. Sort of, there are some things that the research has kind of been clear in terms of, for example, how Instagram, and you're saying you have daughters, will impact body image for an adolescent. That we know has been damaging. It's been tough, but part of it has been. I sort of think of it this way, similar to what you're saying with some of these topics here, is that there's social media without guidance or sort of in isolation. If an adolescent is navigating it on their own and they're trying to figure out, oh, I see this Kardashian, right? And I want my body to look like her body. And how come it doesn't? That really impacts me negatively. Versus if I have somebody guiding me and coaching me and saying, hey, you know what? Whether you're looking at an athlete or a reality star or whatever it is on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, there are some things there that are good that you want to aspire to. So what that means is we got to be more healthy. Maybe we got to work harder. We got to do this and this,
Sure.
right? So we can use it as an inspiration, but without proper guidance, kind of the summary I think that I can tell you, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or all these other things, as a young person trying to navigate on their own, it could really be damaging. It could really hurt them. It could really mess up a lot of things in their own self-esteem. But with proper direction, it could actually be a good way to connect. I mean, it's one of the ways that you and I connected today. I wouldn't have connected with you
Sure.
without it. And I've connected with a lot of people, patients or otherwise, who found community on social media, who found a way to say, oh, I'm not the only one who's like struggling with this, or I'm not the only one who wants to do this. So with some coaching, with some, guidance and sort of parameters, it can be really great. Without it, it can be one of those things that, I'll tell you, even the TikTok algorithm, one of their content creators has kind of came out and said that if you're not feeling well, for example, if you're depressed, it'll keep giving you more depressing content because it's saying that's what you're sort of feeding, that's what you're consuming. So they're going to keep giving you more and you'll feel worse about yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
It can
it's a
tell
way.
you based on what you're doing. Like that app can basically tell you if you're happy, sad,
Yes.
want motivation, like
Yep.
anything. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
It
That's
is.
amazing.
It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable
That is
algorithm.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Who can come
Yeah.
up with stuff like this?
Seriously. I mean, that's what I try to do for a living, try to understand people's feelings.
Exactly.
You got this app that can do it in a couple of minutes. So it's
You know what would be
fun.
amazing if you had a screen of 8 pictures, and 5 minutes before they walk into your office, okay, rapid fire. What do you like right now? Bing, bing, bing. You walk in, you know exactly what they're thinking. That's amazing. That's interesting. You know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start sitting down with them and going through. I've always been like anti.
Yes.
Be like, you know what? Come on, show me what you like. Some of the
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
and just like let them kind of don't fight it, embrace it. But just
Yes.
put the in parameters. Thank you.
Yeah, the embracing, and there's actually research. It can be a way to sort of bond too. And you've seen, even Braun doing TikToks with his family or whatever.
Yeah.
It could be a way for you to understand their world, and they can feel like, oh, well, Daddy can kind of see what I'm into, right? And see, oh, I like this trend, and it'll be a little confusing in the beginning, but as you sort of go with it, and it's a way to connect together, it could be actually a good thing.
I'm gonna do that. We can share the screen on the TV, and we'll just sit down like family game night, and they can just they can put their TikToks on.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, thank you so much, Brian.
You got it. I'm glad we got a chance to connect.
Me too. I'm hoping that we'll do this again.
Yeah. Well, you got my number, so whenever you want to do something, like I said, it's always going to be like, how about right now?
I'm ready. I'm gonna be
Let's
ready
go.
for it.
So if you text me, you better be ready because I'd be like, sure, let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.